What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to The Breakdown. This is the series where I analyze subscriber gameplay to help you improve. In today's episode, we're going to be analyzing a DMR-1 gameplay from Beware Tryhard. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so as always, let's have a look at the class he decided to use. We've got the DMR-1 Summit with the variable zoom, quick draw, and foregrip, which is an excellent setup. He is using the variable zoom zoomed out as well, which is great. And for a secondary, we have the Oni Exile. For perk 1, we got Dexterity and Ghost. For perk 2, we have Scavenger, and perk 3, we have Marksman. And really, there is nothing at all wrong with this class. He plays the strengths very well. I will say he didn't swap to his pistol very often. Maybe he should have swapped to it a little bit more often, but it was pretty clear he was trying to get all his kills with the DMR-1. I believe he was going for some challenges for that variable zoom sight. Alright guys, so the first thing you're going to notice throughout this gameplay is he uses jump shots very effectively. He's either using a scuff or bumper jumper or stick and move. And he's doing it in a very controlled way. You can see his shots are on point when he's jumping. And also, he doesn't jump around like a maniac. It's not like he's always in the air by any means. He uses it when it's necessary to use it. Also, you can see he's very smart the way he approaches a lot of situations. Like this situation right here. Instead of running straight into the room, he instead tries to get a really good line of sight. And it worked out very well for him there. So he's being very aggressive, but at the same time, he isn't being reckless with the way he's playing. I would say he's playing more aggressive than the average player probably should with the DMR-1, but he's obviously a very skilled player and he's able to handle these situations very well, and he's handling these situations in a very smart sort of way, generally. Now sometimes, and I would say most of his deaths come from him being just a little bit too aggressive with the DMR-1 and biting off more than he can chew, because this gun obviously isn't going to be competing like up close in the same room with SMGs, assuming both players are like running into each other at the same time. But if you want to get a lot of kills and you want to be aggressive with this gun, situations like that are going to happen every now and then. Now throughout this gameplay, you'll often see him coming to this area right here, this middle area of the map, and he basically just locks down choke points here. And one thing that I really like with his gameplay as well is oftentimes he'll take a few shots from one position, then he'll move to a different position, getting a really good line of sight as well, and picking off some shots in a different position. He's not moving around a bunch, he's kind of acting like as a turret in the middle of the map. He's constantly rotating around and trying to get to those choke points and pre-aiming those choke points where he thinks enemies are going to be coming from. And it works out very effectively if you have good map awareness, which he clearly does. This isn't going to work out for a lot of players because they're just going to get themselves flanked, because they're just going to get tunnel vision essentially on one area and they're not going to be paying attention to another area. With him, he's constantly on the move, and he's picking off different shots from different angles, and he realizes sometimes he needs to just get out of that area for a little bit, and then he comes back and he continues to lock down that position. The key with this sort of playstyle, posting up in the middle of the map, is that enemies are constantly going to be having to come to you if they're somewhat aggressive enemies. It's not going to work against every kind of enemy, because some enemies just won't leave their spawn, and therefore you'll never run into them. But with these particular enemies that he was playing against, they were constantly trying to push in towards the middle of the map, and therefore he could always be pre-aimed on the doorway or on the choke point where they were going to be coming through, and it made for really easy kills for him. As long as you're setting yourself up so you don't get flanked, this is a very effective strategy with guns like the DMR-1, which aren't really the greatest for being aggressive and pushing aggressively. They're more so designed to be defensive and pick people off that are running into your sights. So skipping ahead right here, I just love this little situation. He runs into a guy that phase shifts basically right in front of his eyes, and he predicts that he's going to come over to this corner or one of the corners on the map, which is almost always what a phase shifter will do. He pops his micro turret down, and that phase shifter had no chance there at all. A lot of people don't realize just how predictable phase shifting can be, and it's quite easy to counter. If you see somebody phase shift, back off a little bit and be ready for him to pop up in a corner. Now skipping ahead again, for the next like 30 seconds to a minute is just excellent examples of drawing enemies to you, keeping your head on a swivel, and locking down an area. A lot of people would call him a camper or something like that. This is not camping by any means. He is locking down the middle of the map. He's keeping his head on a swivel. He's checking all his different angles. He's on the move constantly, and he's also realizing that he is drawing enemies towards him as he's firing his unsilenced DMR. So after he fires a shot, he's constantly checking a different angle. And he's not just staying in one position either. He's moving around a little bit throughout the map. He comes over here, picks off a couple kills, and that's great. He draws the enemies into the room. He knows an enemy is shooting at his back here. He pushes out, just pre-aims at the door, and the guy walks right into his sights. All of this was just such a great example of how effective this playstyle can be as long as your awareness is on point. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of The Breakdown. I know it wasn't a whole lot of details that I covered in this one. A lot of it was more broad gameplay style. But I think it's really neat to show that off with a different style of gun, different style of gameplay than we usually see with this series. Normally, it's somebody with a full auto gun doing full auto things. This one was definitely different, and I thought it would be a nice change of pace to show off in this series. If you guys have a gameplay that you'd like to submit for a future episode of this series, all you have to do is send a link to a raw HD gameplay to the email address left in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.